32-year-old Paola Tacacho was a teacher in Argentina who was being stalked, harassed, and threatened by her ex-student. She did everything right. She reached out for help. She filed 22 official reports against him, and yet she just wasn't taken seriously. Then, one night, after years of being ignored, everyone's worst fear became a reality. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing super well. Today, we're going to be talking about a case that just makes me so angry because it did not have to end the way it did. We're going to be talking about Paola Tacacho, a 32-year-old teacher who was stalked for years by a former student, even after she reported him 22 times. Yes, 22 times, and every single time she was ignored. She did everything that she was supposed to do. She desperately asked for help, and no one helped her until it was too late. We're going to go through Paola's case, including how the stalking started, how the system failed her, and what ended up happening, and why her family and friends are still fighting for justice years later. At the end of the video, I'm also going to be sharing a short clip from the Stalking Prevention, Awareness, and Resource Center, which breaks down what stalking really is. It explains how the SLY framework can help recognize the many different forms that stalking can take. I really encourage you guys to watch it towards the end of the video. I'm also going to leave some helpful resources down below for anyone experiencing stalking or for those who want to learn more and help raise awareness among their friends and family. This video is just so important because this can happen to anyone, and as you'll see, it happened to Paola for a reason that I'm sure she would have never imagined. Thank you all so much for being here, for listening to what happened to Paola, and for helping to continue spread awareness on this very serious topic. Also, if you guys could follow my new Instagram page, I have it linked down below. We had to start fresh. It was just something happened with the previous account where we almost had 20,000 followers, so we had to start fresh, and Instagram is another place where we connect, we spread awareness, we share important information and important content over there, so I will have that link down below. Before we jump into today's video, I do just want to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor, Bombas, for supporting this channel. Bombas is a comfort-focused premium basics brand with the mission to help those in need. They launched in 2013 after the founders learned that socks are the #1 most requested clothing item at homeless shelters. From there, they set out to solve that problem by making the things that you wear every day feel good and do good. One purchased equals one donated. Bombas customers have helped them donate 150 million plus clothing items to those who need them. Not only do they donate socks, but they also donate underwear and t-shirts. Now, almost 10 years later, they make the most comfortable socks for any occasion: running, hiking, dressing up, or dressing down, or just staying cozy. I have a couple of different socks from Bombas. I have these really cute grip socks that I wear to my hot Pilates classes. These are like a pastel pink, and I get so many compliments on these socks in my workout classes. I think people really like the color and just how simple and aesthetic they look. I love the height, I love the color, I love the material. It's literally the perfect grip sock, but I will say I actually get more compliments on these heart socks that I have. Of course, like, they are just super cute. Like, who wouldn't be obsessed with these socks? These are super cute for just like lounging around the house, or if I'm gonna go play like board games at a friend's house and we're gonna be like all cozy. Like, these are the socks that I will wear, and I know everyone is just going to give them such a big compliment because they're just so cute. Summer vacation is just around the corner, so if you have an upcoming long flight, make sure to check out these compression socks from Bombas. They also have a variety of sandals and slides for you to wear throughout the summer. If you're looking to like dress up and do something a little bit fancier, no worries, Bombas is there for you too with their new frilly, sheer, or bow sock. Bombas has a 100% happiness guarantee, which means that they offer free returns and exchanges for any reason. Feel good and do good with Bombas, knowing your purchase is doing some real good. New customers get 20% off their first purchase. Just go to bombas.com/Jackie and use code Jackie20 at checkout. Once again, thank you so much to Bombas for supporting this channel, and with that, let's jump right into today's video. 32-year-old Paola Estefania Tacacho was born in Salta, Argentina on August 8, 1988. She was born to a very loving family, but was especially close with her sister Ana and her mom Mariela, as well as with her aunts and her cousins. You know, they were just a big, beautiful family. They knew what was going on in each other's lives. They always were hanging out and were just like extremely close to each other. Growing up, Paola was naturally drawn to literature and language, and she wanted to build a life around that one day. When Paola was 19 years years old, she still had that same dream. She loved English and literature, and she wanted that dream to come true. So she decided to move 5 hours away from her hometown and from everything that she's ever known and from her family to attend the National University of Tucumán, where she would study to become an advanced English professor. And she thrived there. She grew a deep love for English literature and would spend so much time reading books not only for school, but for fun in her free time. Going to school full-time is a lot for most people, but luckily Paola had some support from her family to help pay for her schooling. Before graduating, she began working, making her own money, and just growing more and more independent. With this new independence, she also began to travel. She fell in love with seeing the world and just learning the history and the culture of each place that she went to. And once she started traveling, she didn't want to stop. She wanted to continue taking trips, making memories, and learning about other cultures and just learning about the world. So she was working really hard to save up enough money to continue traveling. She was not only working hard to travel more, but also to buy a house of her own one day so that she could stop renting. And again, she knew that working hard was literally the only way to achieve any of this. When she graduated, Paola began teaching English language classes to children of all ages. She did it all, like from elementary school students to high school students and beyond. So she was everyone's teacher. She was Miss Bao to her former students, and honestly, everyone had nothing but wonderful things to say about her as a teacher. They all said that Paola was patient, enthusiastic, and just super passionate about what she was teaching. She just seemed like the ideal, perfect teacher. Now, aside from her full-time teaching job, she wasn't done learning herself. Paola had also started pursuing another degree in English with a focus on history. On top of that, on top of everything that she was already doing, she was also learning French as an additional language. So as you can see, Paola was just incredibly hardworking. She was incredibly studious, very smart, very intelligent, and she just loved to keep her schedule and her mind busy. Now, outside of her professional schedule and her professional life, Paola also had a really good social and romantic life. She actually had a girlfriend named Ana Cecilia and a really solid friend group in Tucumán. Paola just loved them so much. She loved hanging out with her friends after work and just getting the chance to hang out with them, go out for drinks, go out for food, and they were like her second family. So yeah, things seemed to be going really well for Paola in all aspects. She was moving forward in life and working towards her goals. But there was one thing still in the way of her total happiness, and one thing that just constantly weighed her down. Unfortunately, Paola was living with a dark shadow that just followed her everywhere. No matter how hard she tried to get rid of this dark shadow, it just lingered and just grew more and more. This darkness wasn't just a feeling. It had a name, a face, and a very strong presence. Paola had a stalker, a real one, someone who watched her, obsessed over her, harassed her, threatened her, and slowly started turning her daily life, which she once loved and was so happy with, into just a terrible, terrible nightmare. It all started in 2015 while Paola was working as an English teacher at the Mark Twain School in San Miguel de Tucumán. She came across a student who stood out, but not in a good way. His name was Mauricio Gilberto Parada Parejas, and he was born on February 25th, 1988, so he was the same age as Paola. Now, in school, Mauricio was definitely an outcast who mainly kept to himself. He didn't want to work in group projects, he didn't really want to talk to other people, he didn't want to participate in class, and everyone just says that he gave off like a very odd energy. Not only did the staff say this, but so did his classmates as well. Like, he didn't really have any friends and people didn't really like him. This brings us to June 2015. This is when Paola was giving out grades on a past assignment, and she gave Mauricio an 8.5 out of 10. Now, this is equivalent to a B+, so it's not like she failed him and gave him like a D or something like that, but to Mauricio, this was not acceptable, and he got quite mad. This is the exact moment Paola's nightmare began. Mauricio began to harass her, obsessively sending her disturbing, insulting, and just threatening messages online. Although it was mainly online that Mauricio made himself known, he would also wait outside for her at school and then follow her home from a distance. So Paola would be walking home and Mauricio would be all the way back there, like slowly following her. Even if he was far away, he would just be following her. Paola was really scared by this, and she knew that she had to report this stalking immediately. She spoke to some of the teachers at the school, and some of the teachers were like, listen, we also dealt with like a situation with Mauricio at one point. It never got to that point where he was like stalking the other teachers, but they also had problems with him. So they were like, of course, like your experience is valid, and they encouraged Paola to report it to the school. So that's exactly what she did. She actually reported Mauricio various times to the school administration, but according to her mother, Mariela, the school just like dismissed her concerns. They said it wasn't something that they could deal with and that the issue was between her and her student to figure out and fix. What in the world? Like, who says that? Instead of helping her, they turned their backs on her, on one of their own teachers. I mean, it's just horrible. Paola was looking for support and she just really needed some backup. To make things even worse, not long after she spoke up, she was actually let go from her teaching job at the school. The school never confirmed if her termination was connected to the reports that she made, but I mean, the timing of it just kind of speaks for itself. And on top of this, coincidentally, once Paola was gone from the school and was no longer a teacher there, so was Mauricio. He disappeared from school altogether. He never showed up to class, never told anyone what was going on, nothing. He just left. Now, he left the school, but he wasn't out of Paola's life. From here, things just only got worse. Paola's social media accounts, including her Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, were being flooded with the same threatening, insulting, and just violent messages from Mauricio via numerous fake accounts with random names. He would post or like send photos of herself with text over it that just read some very disturbing things. For example, one photo that he would send her would say, "The time to disappear is approaching," and "I am dead." Then he would send another one that would say RIP and "We're watching you" and "Mommy, I'm gonna die soon." Yes, he would put those messages over a picture of Paola. It's just so creepy and scary to think about receiving something like that, especially when those things are written over a picture of yourself. Mauricio would then call Paola along with other slurs, and he would even send Paola photos of other women who were victims of femicide in Argentina with text that would say, "You're next." This guy was just truly evil, which like that just seems beyond threatening in itself. Now, he would not only message Paola, but he also started messaging people from her friends list, like her relatives and just other close friends, and then would message these people and ask for Paola's personal phone number, saying he was just an old student trying to get in contact with a teacher. Then if they would refuse to give him like Paola's number, he would then ask them to pass along messages to Paola. Now, these people would just block him, and then he would just create new accounts where then he would continue to harass these people asking for Paola's information, and even began sending threatening messages and just leaving comments on their photos. Paola would just tell her friends and family like, like just ignore him, like it's someone who's bothering me, and everyone was under the impression that this was just like cyber stalking and bullying. But then Mauricio started messaging the friends and family posing as Paola. Yeah, so like at first, like he was just making these random accounts with random names and trying to get information through that way. But now that they were ignoring him, he was like, "I'm just gonna make an account pretending to be Paola." And then he would message her family insinuating that she was going to end her life. The family would believe it because they would think this is coming from Paola, and they would get scared, as they should. Then Paola would have to intervene and tell them like, "This isn't true, this isn't my real account, this isn't actually me." And because of that, Paola would constantly have to make new accounts due to Mauricio's harassment. Then at the same time, he would make new accounts under her name, so her family and friends sometimes didn't know like which accounts were the real Paola and which were Mauricio's. So it was very scary seeing those messages because they just didn't know like when Paola was actually reaching out to them asking for help or when it was Mauricio just pretending to be Paola. It was just an exhausting time, but Paola just kept telling her family that this wasn't her and to just keep ignoring the messages if they got any more. Each time Paola would report these threatening messages, she would be told, "Oh, it's online, like it's just messages. Oh, it's not a big deal then, that's not a problem." And then she'd just kind of be brushed off. Nothing was taken seriously and nothing was done to stop Mauricio. He went from messaging her friends and family online as a way to get her personal information to eventually going to the places that Paola either visited or frequented. Like for example, he would go to the restaurants that she would order takeout from and would try to get her information from the host stand. He would also call her Jim and pretend to be a family member who needed her contact information because there was an emergency. Again, Paola would make new accounts, she would change her phone number, change her email address, but it seemed like no matter what she did, Mauricio would somehow find them and continue harassing her. He kept sending threatening and just very frightening messages and sometimes even just spamming her with like nonsensical images like memes or cartoon images of SpongeBob and would just send her random things. Now, it all got to the point that Paola was forced to actually close all of her social media accounts once and for all because it was just getting way out of control. Like it just wasn't worth it anymore to make a new account then delete it, make a a new account, then delete it again. It was just absolutely exhausting for Paola, for her family, and for her friends. Since Mauricio couldn't get in touch with her online anymore, he began following her in person. But he would never say anything to her. He would simply just observe her, watch her. If they ever did make eye contact, he would actually laugh in her face. It's just insane. He'd hang around her apartment building. He would sit on the steps right by the entrance. He would stand by the entrance or literally just walk by over and over again. Friends, family, and Paola's girlfriend, Ana Cecilia, would take pictures of him and they would try shooing him away, but he would literally tell them like, oh, I'm in my rights to be here. Like, this is a public street. Or he would say excuses like, oh, I'm just here because I'm buying like some food from the store nearby, or I'm taking out the trash. So he would just make random excuses as to why he was outside of Paola's house. Now, sometimes the shooing and the like go away would work, but then he would be right back in front of Paola's apartment building later that same day. He almost always wore the same clothing, so it was very easy to identify him. He would even ring her doorbell over and over again and pretend to be someone else over the buzzer. But of course, Paola would recognize his voice and she would just ignore him. It got to the point where then she had to disconnect her doorbell altogether because he just wouldn't stop ringing it. Even though she removed the doorbell and she was doing all of this to protect herself, Mauricio just wouldn't stop. He just wouldn't leave her alone. He began leaving photos of her and handwritten letters addressed to her in her apartment lobby, or would slide them underneath her apartment door, which was on the first floor, which is so scary to think about how he was literally just outside of her door. Now, Paola would make report after report to the police, begging each time for a restraining order to prevent Mauricio from going near her apartment or her place of work. She would present so much evidence to back up her accusations too. Like, she had all this proof. She had the photos of him, the videos of him, the messages, the handwritten letters. Like, she had all of this information. The authorities would look at it, they would take everything down, write her information down, say that they would inform Mauricio of the restraining order, and that was it. No officer actually checked to see if he was abiding by the restraining order, which of course he wasn't. He was constantly violating it. There was nothing to ensure Paola's safety and Mauricio's obedience of the order. There was never a panic button given to her. There was no electronic tracking bracelet or anklet placed on Mauricio. There wasn't an officer doing surveillance at her apartment or at her workplace. Nothing. So in reality, the restraining order was nothing more than a piece of paper. It was doing nothing to actually stop Mauricio and just bring Paola a little bit of safety and a little bit of comfort. Nothing stopped him. He would violate the restraining orders over and over again, and then Paola would have to go back to the police station. She would have to report the violations over and over again. I know it sounds very repetitive. Like, if it just sounds repetitive by me saying it, imagine how Paola felt actually living this, actually having to do this constantly. Like, I just want to emphasize how many times Paola had to report him and everything she did to get him away from her. She would present even more evidence each time, and she would even have friends or neighbors come to the police station with her to testify to the harassment. She would tell authorities that she was actually scared for her life and that she was at a very high risk of being injured or even murdered, and that she felt very vulnerable at the hands of Mauricio. She didn't feel safe leaving her apartment or even being inside her apartment. I mean, even inside her own apartment, she didn't feel safe since he would literally slide notes underneath her door. But again, nothing was done. It was just so exhausting going back to the police over and over again, only to just not be taken seriously each time. She was doing everything the government tells people to do when they feel unsafe, to literally document it and then report it. So why wasn't anything being done? Only once was Mauricio held in custody for a very short time, and then he was just released to basically go back to his usual harassing of Paola. He would also take note of her daily movements, like the route that she would walk to work or to the gym, and then he would want to make her feel watched. So he would literally write her name along the walls in the street, along the route that she would walk, clearly visible for her to see on her way to the gym or on her way to work. He would also write the number 144 a lot, which is actually the number to call for victims of gender-based violence. It's just sick, and he was just taunting her. Imagine walking to work and then you see on your way there, your name just written there and your stalker just leaving notes for you there. He also began writing random things in her apartment building staircase and on the walls with black marker or with whiteout. Now, the apartment building would have to paint over these writings constantly. This was another way of him making her feel like he was in control, and his way of letting her know that he was watching her and that he knows everything that she does every single day. He would also stand outside her gym and just simply watch her through the glass. Paola felt completely surrounded. Even more when she found out that Mauricio literally lived in an apartment just 1 block away from her gym. And this gym was just like 4 or 5 blocks away from her own apartment, so he was just close to her at all times. Now, she actually tried reaching out to Mauricio's family for help. She reached out to his brother, who's kind of like, the leader of the family, and she reached out to him various times to tell him to get control of his brother, that she was scared for her own safety. But Mauricio's brother, Ronald, told her utter nonsense. He told her that his brother technically wasn't doing anything wrong and that he was only looking at her. Yes, he even suggested to her that she be the one to leave town because Mauricio lived in an apartment that Ronald paid for, and since most of their family lived nearby as well, they just weren't willing to make that sacrifice, to have Mauricio move away. Like, what? Paola then told Ronald all the reports that she had made, all the restraining orders that she had made, all the violation reports of said restraining orders. She literally showed him all the evidence that she had collected, and his solution was for Paola to leave. It was so infuriating. His family was well aware of what was going on, and of the fact that Mauricio actually suffered from some sort of mental illness, but did nothing to help Paola. Ronald would just tell her like, well, yeah, we think my brother has like some sort of problem, like something is wrong with him, but are you sure it's him that's harassing you? You don't know for sure if it's him. Yeah, he would literally tell her that. He would say that despite everything that Paola would show him of proof that it was Mauricio harassing her. I mean, Paola and her friends definitely believed that Mauricio had some sort of mental illness, but they weren't sure exactly what he had, but they would eventually find out. Initially, medical reports said that he was completely fine, but it wasn't until much later that he was actually formally diagnosed with schizophrenia, and the psychiatrist determined that his condition was total and permanent. Because of this, the court assigned him a legal guardian by the Justice Access Program for People with Disabilities, and that role was taken by his brother, Ronald. The psychiatrist also said that Mauricio going on medicine or therapy would improve his condition, but slowly and only partially. They also recommended that he be admitted to a psychiatric clinic for a period of time. So yeah, it was clear to his family that he had a mental illness and that he needed help. I'm not sure if Paola was ever shown the official paperwork like declaring this, but again, his family was well aware, and each time Paola went to them asking them for help, they would just turn a blind eye. Now, on the same topic of Mauricio's brother, Paola's family believed that the reason that Mauricio was getting away with violating the restraining orders over and over again with no repercussions and was not being placed into medical care or had proper supervision was because of his brother Ronald. He was a prominent businessman in the city and was friends with lots of politicians and kind of just involved in that whole world. To name one, he was very good friends with the then governor Juan Luis Mansur. So to Paola's family, this was the explanation for Mauricio's immunity. They believed that he could just get away with anything because his brother had connections and didn't want to ruin the family's name, so he would help cover up whatever Mauricio did. Now, the family believed this even more so when in 2017, one of Paola's reports of Mauricio's restraining order violation reached the trial request stage, but Judge Juan Francisco Pisa rejected it. And it actually took him several months to come to this decision. He told the prosecutors that there was not enough evidence and that he didn't want to waste the state's resources. Yes, he said that he didn't want to waste the state resources about a case of stalking. So yeah, Mauricio once again went unscathed. The stalking and the harassment didn't stop after this. It went on for 3 more years after Judge Pisa refused to take him to trial. Another explanation numerous officials gave for Paola's reports being dismissed was because of lack of office space and personnel for her files. Like what? Like they were basically saying like, we don't have enough room for your documents in our office and we don't have enough people to handle it. Just insane. Despite all of this, Paola was adamant and she continued making reports. She wasn't going to stop. She did her best to steer clear of Mauricio and kept changing her personal contact information, but even after changing her contact information, he kept finding her. Now, at first, Paola was confused, asking herself how he was continuously getting her new phone number or her new address, but then it hit her. Every time that she would file a report, he would be presented with those documents alongside his lawyer, and because no one at the court had taken the basic step of protecting her privacy and cutting out her name or blurring her name on the documents, her personal information was right there, easy for Mauricio to see, to copy, and then use to keep tormenting her. Paola just felt completely unprotected and just felt like she had nowhere to go. It felt like no one truly cared about her safety. In a voice message that she sent to someone close to her, you can just hear how exhausted and frustrated she was with everything. She had done everything right. She asked for help over and over again and still no one cared. After years and so much that happened.
Todas las veces que hice denuncia, a mí me pedían datos. Me pedían datos y a veces yo recibía llamadas de números de acá, obviamente privados, en donde atendía y se quedaban mudos, y era cuando todo esto estaba en pleno proceso de ebullición. Cuando ellos van y le muestran la denuncia porque él va con el abogado y todo eso, él se pone a observar todas esas cosas, ¿me entendés? Y no dudo de que haya visto teléfono, de que haya visto mail, porque son datos que te piden en la fiscalía o que me pedían en la fiscalía cuando estaba tramitando todo por ahí en su momento.
Now, Paola eventually stopped telling her family about the harassment because they were just getting so worried for her, and it was creating such a heavy environment around her friends and family. Paola just didn't want to burden or worry them anymore when she probably knew nothing was going to change anyways. It's just so sad that she just felt so helpless and just felt like she had to hide this from her family because she didn't want to worry them. Her cousin Nilda said, quote, "She left no stone unturned. She went everywhere she could. She didn't tell her family. She kept it all to herself, relying only on the help of a few close friends." In total, Paola made 22 reports to the authorities about the harassment and the stalking by Mauricio. And every time, as we've said, absolutely nothing substantial was done. This neglect is even more infuriating when you consider that Argentina had already passed the Ley Micaela, a law created in the aftermath of the femicide case involving Micaela Garcia to prevent exactly this kind of tragedy. Now, we actually will be diving into her case in another video of mine soon. Now, Ley Micaela mandates training on gender-based violence for everyone working in public service across Argentina's national government. The goal is to equip public officials with the tools to recognize and understand gender-based violence and inequalities, and to develop strategies aimed at eradicating them. It also aims at making public officials change the way that they process paperwork and how they intervene when a report is made to prevent further escalation or deaths. But when it came to Paola, that law felt like nothing but a piece of paper. Her family believes that if the officials had truly followed the spirit and the intent of Ley Micaela, someone would have seen how serious her case was. Someone would have acted, but no one did. And in the end, Paola was left completely unprotected by a system that she trusted, and one that promised to keep her safe. Her lawyer actually suggested that they take a step back from reporting to the criminal court of law and instead go to the civil courts. In June of 2020, Paola did exactly that. She was filing a lawsuit for the damage Mauricio was causing in her life. This was after 5 years of harassment and torture by Mauricio towards her, and she was just looking for another way to get him out of her life. 5 years, you guys. 5 years Paola had to deal with this. During a virtual mediation for this civil lawsuit, Mauricio showed up with his brother Ronald, presenting himself as his legal guardian. So once again, just like more proof that Ronald was well aware of everything that Mauricio was doing to Paola and just did nothing to intervene. Now, this civil case didn't get far. The civil courts told Paola that this was a criminal case because it involved gender-based violence and was directed to go back to the criminal courts to continue making her reports there. So yet again, she hit another dead end. But Paola wasn't given up, and while fighting, despite being ignored each time she made a report, she still tried living her life as normally as she could. So on Friday, October 30th, 2020, Paola went on about her day as usual. She decided to end the day with a trip to the gym as she usually did because she just enjoyed moving her body and just kind of taking her mind off everything. That evening at around 9 p.m., she was making her way back to her apartment when on her walk home, she ran into Mauricio, who had actually been following her since she had left the gym earlier. They began to argue and she tried running away. He pulled out a knife and stabbed her in the back. He continued stabbing her a total of 6 times against the glass window of a local business, and then he just ran away. Neighbors and business owners heard the commotion, and at first they thought that someone was being, robbed, but when they stepped outside and saw what had happened, they realized that this was a murder. Some people actually ran after Mauricio while others stayed to try to help Paola and to call an ambulance. Unfortunately, despite the quick efforts to keep her alive, Paola succumbed to her injuries and passed away. Mauricio was ultimately caught up to too, and he was actually cornered by members of the neighborhood. Someone even pepper sprayed him, which made him fall to the ground and drop the knife. Realizing that he literally had nowhere to go, he was literally cornered by the neighborhood, Mauricio reached for the knife that fell on the ground and stabbed himself in the chest. Paola's mother, Mariela, remembered this day so vividly. Before she even found out what actually happened to her daughter, she was just having like a normal day back in their hometown, Salta, but she had like a really bad headache all day. She felt really tired while she was at work, and something just felt off. At night, when she got home, she remembers lying in bed and just kind of winding down from a tough day. She eventually fell asleep, and at around midnight, that's when she got the call. The phone rang, and she woke up hearing the news that Paola's stalker had just attacked her, and she was told that her daughter was taken to the hospital. So she quickly gathered her things and started to make her way down to Tucumán, and as she was doing so, she just kept telling herself like, okay, like she's in the hospital, that means like there's still a chance that she could be okay and that she'll be alive if she's in the hospital. And she just kept repeating that to herself over and over again the entire way there. But unfortunately, as we know, Paola was gone. Mariela and the rest of her family arrived at the morgue and waited while her autopsy was performed. When it was finished, the medical examiners asked her if they were ready to see her. Mariela thought to herself like, who is ever ready to go see their lifeless daughter? And when they saw her, that was it. She just completely broke down because she just couldn't believe it. Her daughter was gone. It was all just so terrible. After this, Paola was cremated and taken back to her hometown in Salta. And the life that Paola had built and all the dreams that she had and just everything that she had done in Tucumán was over. Mauricio took everything away from her. Her family knew that it wasn't just Mauricio to blame though. The government had their part in her murder as well for not helping her when she desperately asked for help. 2 weeks after Paola's death, they searched Mauricio's apartment. There, they found photocopies of Paola's ID, which she would have had to have photocopied when she made each report against him. They also found 2 letters. One was a printed letter, and the other was a handwritten letter, and both said basically the same thing. Mauricio knew that he was going to commit this act. He knew he was going to take Paola's life. He said he was not to blame for any of it, writing, quote, "It's not my fault. I didn't ask or vote to be born." He says this was all the judge's fault for, quote, "knowing I had schizophrenia with psychotic outbreak," but that they did nothing to stop him, as well as his family's fault for not giving him the necessary treatment when they knew that he wasn't well. Mauricio also blamed Paola in these letters for always provoking him and said that in the end, she got what she deserved. Just disgusting. He also wrote how he wants to be cremated along with all of his things like his CDs, movies, and clothes. Like I said, both letters were very similar and just very eerie, knowing he wrote them before his and her deaths, when he knew what he was going to do. In the end, the letters weren't just confessions, they were accusations too. In his words, they were accusations against a family, a justice system, and a society that allowed all of this to happen. After Paola's death, the community was just completely outraged. As more details were released by family members, the public just saw how inefficient and just how careless the authorities were. Not even just like careless, but also just like unempathetic. They didn't care about Paola, they didn't care about helping her, they didn't care about anything. The community was especially upset with Judge Francisco Pisa, the judge who denied the case against Mauricio to go to trial. He was under intense fire not only from the public, but also from Paola's family. Due to this, the Tucumán legislator received 2 requests to initiate impeachment proceedings against him. Legislator Jose Maria filed one of those arguing that Francisco didn't act swiftly or with a gender-sensitive approach, and also criticized him for taking an entire 9 months to decide whether or not this stalking case should go to trial, which was just like a waste of time since he ended up siding with Mauricio anyways, the aggressor. He was like, how did it take you 9 months to decide whether or not this stalker should go to trial? Jose Maria said, quote, "Perhaps we still have time to prevent another femicide caused by the judge's negligence, who is a disgrace to the people of Tucumán. Not holding the judge accountable, the one who prevented the stalker from going to trial, means choosing impunity. It sends a message that even if a woman is murdered in Tucumán, neither the abuser nor those who turn a blind eye will face consequences." Now, the second request for impeachment was by the feminist organization Mumala. A spokesperson for the organization said, quote, "This judge didn't listen to Paola when the aggressor repeatedly violated a restraining order, and that is already a crime. The protective laws that are meant to safeguard us were ignored, because when a woman files a complaint, action must be taken immediately." So yeah, these were the 2 requests along with an order from the president of the Tucumán Supreme Court, Claudia, who ordered an urgent audit to review all of the reports that Paola made and Judge Pisa's conduct and a response to them. However, before anything could happen, Judge Francisco Pisa resigned. According to lawyers Carlos and Soledad from the foundations Women for Women and the Maria de los Angeles Foundation, the judge's resignation was like a strategic move to avoid being tried. So it's not like he was resigning because he felt bad and was like, listen, like, yeah, I'll take myself down. I shouldn't be a judge. He was doing it for his own benefit. Soledad said, quote, I want to clarify that his resignation is conditional upon being granted retirement benefits. Personally, I hope he is removed from his position until those benefits are approved, because otherwise, this resignation allows him to keep working and continuing the same injustice he has been managing so far, which would almost be a mockery. She then went on to explain, quote, the problem is that a resignation conditional on receiving retirement benefits has a time frame. During that time, he can continue running the court, and what we hope is that even though retirement may allow him a way to avoid the political trial, it should not allow him to keep exercising the position. The state has the power to suspend him, so we want him removed from his duties to prevent further harm. Now, the then governor, Juan Luis Mansur, held the decision. He could either accept Judge Pisa's resignation and allow him to remain in his position until he receives his retirement benefits, or reject it so that the legislator can move forward with the impeachment trial and his removal from office. While this political dispute unfolded, Judge Pisa continued to serve his role, which is crazy. There were petitions asking the governor not to approve Judge Pisa's resignation, and in February of 2021, he did. But Paola's family wasn't going to give up. Numerous marches were being held by feminist organizations and Paola's family and friends, calling for the authorities to take responsibility for her death. It wasn't only Judge Francisco Pisa that her family and the public wanted to be held accountable. It was literally everyone who at one point had Paola's case file in their hands and did nothing. But in August of 2021, almost a year after Paola's death, the only person facing a political trial was Judge Pisa. Due to the family's non-stop fight, on August 24th, 2021, the impeachment committee of the Tucumán legislature unanimously decided to try Judge Pisa before a jury for his alleged misconduct in Paola's case. President of the committee, Raul, said, this judge did not honor his position and we are going to request his removal. So, in November of 2021, Judge Pisa was officially removed from his position, a decision which was made unanimously by the jury of impeachment. He was also denied retirement benefits, which would have been 82% of his salary as his pension. Paola's family hugged each other, and cried with relief when they heard the news. They felt like this was the start to finally getting some justice for Paola, that a door was now open for them to make a change. With this judge dismissed, another victim could potentially be saved, and the rest of the legal authorities could see what can happen if they do not take their jobs to protect people seriously. Now there's actually consequences for this. On the 1-year anniversary of Paola's death, murals were inaugurated in honor of her at the National University in Tucumán, where she graduated from. There was also a mass held and a plaque in her memory placed in the English department. It reads, quote, a year after the femicide of Paola Tacacho, the academic community of the Faculty of Philosophy and Language demands justice and reaffirms its commitment to the fight against gender-based violence. Coworkers, friends, old classmates, past students, and family members spoke during this memorial, and they all just shared such wonderful memories of Paola, how she was such a good teacher, how she taught with so much passion, had all these life goals, and how she was kind to everyone that she interacted with. It was a really heavy day for everyone, but also a really beautiful memorial for Paola. Hours later, a march was held, which began with people walking from the spot where she passed away to a nearby plaza where an altar with candles and photos of her was set up in her honor. Paola's mom gave a heartfelt speech where she said that she sometimes still doesn't believe that her precious daughter is truly gone. She thinks that one day she'll get to wake up and she'll wake up from this nightmare, and that the one thing that keeps her going is just fighting for justice. 4 years after Paola's death, her family and friends are still fighting for those who failed her to be held responsible, for those in the system to be removed from their positions so that they cannot act with such indifference to another victim ever again, and for Mauricio's family to also take accountability. One of Paola's good friends, Marcelo, who was there with her during all of what she went through, said, quote, "I even went with her to talk to the killer's brother. They knew what he was doing to her. We sincerely went to ask them for help, not to cause a scene. They got rid of their problem because they didn't want to take responsibility for the sick person in their family. They got rid of the problem at the cost of my friend's life." Like I said, Paola's family is not done fighting for justice. They continue organizing marches and holding all of the government officials and the Parada Pareja's family responsible, saying that they turned their back on Paola. They ignored her call for help. They ignored her warnings. They just allowed Mauricio to do whatever he wanted. They allowed him to continue threatening and harassing Paola for so many years. Paola's family has publicly said, quote, "Today Paola is no longer here because she was murdered by Mauricio Parada Parejas, the brother of Ronald Parada Parejas, who knew everything. He paid Mauricio's bail so he could remain free. He paid his rent so that he could live just a few blocks from Paola's home, and paid for the lawyers who defended him in every case Paola filed against him. During a mediation between Paola and the aggressor, Ronald even showed up as his brother's legal guardian, and went as far as telling Paola that she should be the one to move and that he would pay for her to move. For him, the solution was for Paola to leave her home. That moment was yet another form of violence Paola was forced to endure. The justice system and the Parada Parejas family are responsible. They might not have held the knife, but they let Mauricio murder Paola. Paola did everything that she could to protect herself. She intentionally and consistently asked for help. She followed the law and the protocols, and she spoke up again and again. But she didn't receive that same effort back. Her family and her loved ones will continue marching, continue trying to hold everyone who let Paola down accountable, and just continue honoring Paola's memory. I hope that her soul is resting peacefully and that her loved ones can heal the wounds Mauricio and just everyone else responsible left behind. I'll be leaving Paola's Justice Instagram page down below if you guys want to go follow the page and just show them some love. I will be playing a short clip from the Stalking Prevention Awareness and Resource Center, which breaks down what exactly stalking is and explains how the SLY framework can help recognize the many different forms that it can take. It goes over a lot about what Paola unfortunately endured. It's pretty much the key to recognizing the various forms of stalking to protect ourselves and our loved ones.
When people think about stalking, they often think about surveillance, and we frequently see images of binoculars or cameras. While surveillance is indeed part of many stalking cases, stalkers engage in a wide variety of diverse and disturbing behaviors in order to scare their victims. By definition, stalking is a pattern of behavior directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear for their safety or the safety of others, or to suffer substantial emotional distress. In other words, if something's scary and not the first thing that happened, it could be a stalking case. And that's a wide variety of behaviors. There are 4 major categories of stalking tactics: surveillance, life invasion, intimidation, and interference through sabotage or attack. This is called the SLY framework. These categories overlap and intersect, and many stalkers use more than one approach. The SLY framework can help us better identify and respond to a wide range of stalking behaviors. Surveillance includes tracking, watching, and otherwise gathering information about the victim. Stalkers may plant tracking devices or recording technology, or find ways to hack into or otherwise access existing accounts or devices. Surveillance often happens both through technology and in person. Following, watching, showing up, or asking mutual acquaintances for information are also common tactics. Life invasion describes how the stalker is inserting themselves into the victim's life, making victims unable to get through their day without seeing the stalker or signs of the stalker. This often includes excessive contact like phone calls, emails, direct messages, comments, and more across platforms and applications. Stalkers may also show up in person at places a victim frequents, park outside the home or workplace, or leave items or notes to indicate they have been in the victim's space. Intimidation includes threats to harm the victim or others who the victim cares about. Victims may be afraid of physical violence as well as other harms. For example, a stalker may threaten to share a private or sexual image. Intimidation may include direct, explicit threats as well as implicit threats communicated through symbolic violence, such as property damage. Stalkers often know how to uniquely scare their victims and can effectively intimidate their victims without saying a word. Interference through sabotage or attack includes a range of tactics that have direct consequences to victims. Stalkers may spread rumors or misinformation to ruin the victim's reputation, file false reports, interfere with custody, meddle with finances, or carry out other threats they have made. They might damage property or disable accounts that victims need for their daily lives. Stalkers also may restrain victims or assault them physically and/or sexually. Most victims do not use the word stalking to describe what they're experiencing. So asking about all of these categories can help to better assess if that victim is indeed experiencing stalking. Surveillance. Has this person been tracking, following, or monitoring you in any way? Life invasion. Has this person repeatedly invaded your life or privacy by initiating unwanted contact with you? And share some examples of what that might look like. Intimidation. Has this person, more than one time, intimidated or scared you through threats, property damage, threatening to or actually harming pets, or other means? And interference through sabotage or attack. Has this person significantly and directly interfered with your life? The SLY framework can help you to better identify the stalking pattern of behavior beyond individual incidents and recognize the full scope of harm. For more resources on SLY behaviors, plus more tools for multidisciplinary professionals serving stalking survivors, visit stalkingawareness.org.
Thank you all just so much for being here and for listening to what happened to Paola. I know it was such an incredibly difficult video to listen to. Like, just hearing about what she went through is absolutely exhausting, and it just makes you angry to think about it, honestly, to think about how Mauricio's family just kind of let this happen and just let him roam the streets free, even though they knew he wasn't mentally well and that he was a danger. Paola literally told his own family, like, listen, your brother is harassing me, he is stalking me, he is threatening to kill me, and they just told her to pack up her things and move instead of getting help for him and instead of making sure that he was put away somewhere where he couldn't harm other people. I just cannot believe how many people failed Paola. It makes you angry. It makes you scared to think about whether or not one day you'll be in a situation like this and you're asking for help and you're also being ignored. It's just truly frightening, and I'm just so sorry that this happened. Paola seemed like such a genuine soul with such a bright and just happy future ahead of her. It's not fair that all of this happened, and like I said at the beginning, it just shouldn't have ended this way. I would love to know what you guys think about this down below. If you guys haven't watched my last video, I covered the case of Laura Isabel Lopera, a 20-year-old girl from Colombia who agreed to meet her much older ex-boyfriend one final time after he insisted that they needed to talk. But after that day, her family never heard back from her. You guys can click on the upcoming screen to watch her story along with another past video. Also, if you guys want to take your mind off this case and just kind of focus on something fictional and something a little bit different, I do have a second channel where I talk about mystery and thriller movies. So if you guys want some non-true crime content, all of that will be linked down below. That channel is where we sit down and we talk about all things thriller movies, mysteries, and more. I just recapped the movie The Menu, where a couple attends an exclusive and elaborate dinner on a remote island, but they soon discover that the chef has something more sinister on the menu. The movie is really good and just has so many unexpected twists, and it's a really good break and just kind of a way to escape reality for a moment. So if you guys want to check that out, I will have that link down below. I would appreciate it if you guys could go and click the subscribe button. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say, familia. Thank you guys again so much for being here and for continuing to support our mission of spreading awareness together. Stay safe, familia, and yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, everyone.